I've got the top of the hour, so we are going to get started. Hello, everybody. It is 3 o'clock Eastern. Thank you for joining us for this pop-up speaker series call. If you're joining us live today, know that Trevor and I are happy to answer questions. As you've got them, go ahead and raise your virtual hand to contribute to the conversation. And for those listening to the recording later or watching this on YouTube, welcome. We're glad you're here. This session was originally recorded live as part of our executive speaker series where leaders share ideas and experiences to shape the way we work and think. And on one final note before we get to the good stuff, I'm going to again be kicking out your AI bots, no offense. So today we're going to talk about and celebrate together Proudly Human Day. Many of you, have heard us mention Trevor Woods before. Trevor's had many senior executive roles at top 50 and top 100 universities in Australia and Canada. He's driven innovation and led large teams in global operations exceeding $3.5 billion. He has led, participated in, and supported research projects and is now the CEO of Proudly Human. We're thrilled to have Trevor with us for the very first World Proudly Human Day, where he's going to share insights on why staying informed is critical in a world where AI can sometimes masquerade as human. You're going to learn today how AI is reshaping our world, why February 23rd is so significant, and what part Manager Tools plays in Proudly Human certified content. So, welcome, Trevor.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And I think probably good afternoon to all of you. It's morning where I am in the capital city of Australia, Canberra. There's a few Aussies on the call. In my head, always say Canberra because I think that's just funny. I have to remind myself to say Canberra when I'm here. But I know lots of you on the call. It's good to see you. And I'm excited to talk on the very first World Proudly Human Day, which I'll explain a little bit later in the presentation what that's all about, but also explain what Proudly Human is, a new company. And before I do that, maybe just set the context of why this company we think is needed as well. And as Sarah said, we've got some exciting news for you at the end about how Manager Tools is partnering with Proudly Human, and we'll be certifying all of the content going forward, which will make a lot more sense as I go through the presentation. So I just wanted to do a very brief introduction of myself as well. Sarah covered probably most of what I wanted to say, but I did, as many of you know, just want to highlight that for most of my management career, I've been a big follower of the guidance for Manager Tools. And I really found it when I was early in my management career, looking for things, reading Harvard Business Review, everything I could to try and figure out how to be a good manager. And you all know this, that's why you're here. But I think one of the really good things about Manager Tools, and there's so many good things, is it doesn't just give you the guidance around a particular topic, it always wraps it around in the organizational context that it fits and how to be an effective professional. Whereas a lot of the training, a lot of the guidance, they sort of give you a snapshot and you can become very myopic and not see the bigger picture. That's probably the thing that I have valued the most over the years, is always being reminded about that bigger picture in organizations and how you play a part and how you've got to be a professional. So I might, as we go along this a little bit, just try and weave my own take on Proudly Human and in that bigger context as we go along as well. Now, as Sarah mentioned, I am the CEO of Proudly Human since November, so it's only been 4 months. We're a very young company, but we've done a lot in a very short period of time. And it is a very different thing for me to do. Having been an executive for 25 plus years, been a manager for longer than that, you're used to people doing things for you, you're used to having big teams. And when you're a startup organization, it's all about what you've got to do and go from there. So this isn't a conversation about that, but I did want to just say it's been a very interesting shift in activities and what you're thinking about. And there's lots of similarities too. So I might think about doing a call on that in the future if people are interested. But I also just wanted to introduce where all of this came from and my executive chairman and founder of the company as well. And I think he might be listening in on the call, seeing how his CEO is doing. But I met Alan in 2015. He was on my hiring committee when I was hired at Monash University as the chief information officer. And he was the board chair, the chancellor at the time. Very accomplished person. I just decided to put a few things that he's done up on the screen there. But I have to say, working with him closely now for the last 4 months, it highlights, I've learned so much, but it highlights how important it is when you're starting something new to have somebody that's driven, that's self-motivated, that is moving very quickly, that knows lots of people, keeps their network warm. That's one of the things we've learned from Manager Tools over the years as well. Alan and I stayed in touch over the years. In fact, when he went off to be chief scientist of Australia, he asked me to sit on the board of his company at the time, Style Education, which he sold last year, acquired by a friendly acquisition by a US company. And so he thought, I'm not going to retire again through third time failure. Let's start another company because there's a burning need to do that in the world. So that's what I want to get into right now.
Trevor, I was just going to say,
yeah,
many of the people on this call will remember Style Education. Byron and Danny presented to this group.
That is right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So if y'all are familiar with Style, same company.
Good point. Thank you, Sarah, for reminding me of that. So World Proudly Human Day. This will make a lot more sense later on, but we have created World Proudly Human Day, and we only created it as in the last few months in order to be celebrated today, the 23rd of February. I might just actually ask, does anyone have an idea? Maybe you know the answer, so don't. But if you don't know the answer, you want to pause it. Why would we choose to have World Proudly Human Day on the 23rd of February? I'll give you a hint. There was a company that has gone bankrupt, 23andMe. Does that give you a hint? No? All right. Well, it turns out human DNA is 23 pairs. And so the pairs is the second month, February 23 for the number of pairs. And so it makes sense that we would have World Proudly Human Day based on human DNA. So that's probably the scientist and the engineer in Alan who came up with that. But I'll come back to World Proudly Human Day in a moment. I guess to set the context for the company, what is Proudly Human here? Our starting premise really is that humans have the right to choose human. Now, why would we even say that? If you go back decades or hundreds of years, you're really only ever interacting with humans. But as you know, today, living your own life, you're constantly bombarded with AI-generated content, and that is only accelerating every single day, which seems like an exaggeration, but it is true. Even those that spend a lot of time thinking and knowing about AI and the exponential curve that it's on, find ourselves caught off guard just how quickly it's all moving. And that has just reinforced for Alan and I and others in the company, we've got to do something. But the starting premise here is that humans really should have a right to choose human, to interact with humans, to consume human content. And that's really because we are naturally social creatures. We want to be around other people. We want to share our experiences and our ideas and thoughts with other people. We want to hear what theirs are as well. And there's lots of research on this as well that validates really what we already know every day as we go along. And we do have an affinity for humans as well. So if you think about just in your own life and books you read, movies you watch, that sort of thing. Some of you might be Tom Cruise fans. I am, love the Mission Impossible. And one of the things that they market really well and people love is the fact that Tom Cruise does most of his own stunts. And so part of watching that movie, for many of us is not just the storyline and the excitement and the action and that sort of thing. It's actually knowing there's a real human behind doing these things. And sometimes you like to think, well, maybe you could do that too. But today, it's increasingly becoming harder and harder to know whether it's a book, music, videos, if it's human or it's AI. We especially see this on social media, but it's popping up almost everywhere. And if we don't know whether something is AI generated or human created, then how can we actually make a choice if we're really genuinely interested in learning something from a human or appreciating something that a human has come up with? So I'll give you an example, an old one. In fact, there are thousands, if not millions, of books now on Amazon that are AI generated. This is an example of one that's done the right thing, where it was all AI generated, from the cover art to the storyline and everything else. But what is good about this is it was actually disclosed by the so-called author that they used AI to create it. So people are able to make an informed choice if they do notice that. I'm just going to play a little sound clip here, which is a few months old, and many of you who have listened to AI music know it is just phenomenally good, getting better almost by the day. So I'll just play a few seconds of this.
Dust on the wind, boots on the ground, smoke in the sky, no peace found.
Pretty good, isn't it? So this band, Velvet Sundown, probably about a year ago now, topped the charts on Spotify and other places. And the people were looking to find out, well, who are these guys? I want to go to one of their concerts, only to discover these guys don't exist. This is an AI generated image. The entire band is made up, and the music was created by AI. Now, maybe that's okay, but for many people, they felt burned. I actually thought this was a real band, real people. I wanted to follow them, and they kind of felt ripped off on it. And so it's an example of many now that are coming. So our right to choose human really comes down to the obvious, which is information. We are informed by the author. We can choose to download a book by a human. If we're informed about the actors, we can choose to watch videos directed and acted by humans. Some of you might be fans of the show Pluribus on Apple TV. And if you are, you may have noticed at the beginning, and I think the end, Apple's put up a little thing there that says made by humans. And it's their way of saying, actually, everybody who did this, from the script writing to the acting to all the other components, was actually human. We did not got any AI in that video. And that probably matters to them as the creators to explain that to people. It probably matters to a lot of the people who would want to watch that to know that it came from fellow humans and not generated as an idea from AI. But the real crux of the issue here is when AI is masquerading as humans. And we believe that real humans are denied information they need in order to make an informed choice when it happens. And think about this. I'm sure many of you have said and have heard family members and colleagues say that they weren't sure if a video they saw on something was actually true. Maybe it was AI generated. There's believable stuff there that fits with your worldview, and you go, yes, that must be true. And then you find out later on it was AI and all made up, and you feel, again, lied to. And so it's all about making sure people have information to make a choice. So this isn't a new idea. People have been talking for years about needing to tag and disclose AI information. I'll come to that issue in a little bit. In fact, lots of governments around the world have been struggling with this and really doing nothing about it, nothing of any substance around regulating and requiring people to tag AI content or various other things. And I'm not saying they should. I'm not pro or con against the regulation, but the reality is this is not a problem that is being solved, whether it's governments or corporations and others. I'll just give another example. I think it was in 2019, a group of companies got together. There was already a problem with computer-generated things being on the internet. AI was going to make it worse. They got together with this content authenticity initiative, and they really tried to find a way to tag real content produced, for example, by real photographers versus computer-generated. It's really gone nowhere. There's hundreds of members in this ecosystem now, and nothing has really had an impact. And that's part of what has spurred us on. So, Proudly Human, our idea really is to flip the approach. So instead of requiring the tagging of AI content, which is a losing battle, it's not going to happen, even if some people do it. There's an infinite amount of AI content that could be created. Our solution is to really flip the approach and do the voluntary certification of human origin. There's a finite number of human beings. There's a finite amount that a single human being can produce. And therefore, there is a fighting chance to actually be able to certify that a human made something and then therefore allow others to make an informed choice as to whether they want something from AI, maybe they don't care, or something from a human. So we've introduced a new international certification mark to identify human origin. And the value here is that this is global. It's in every country, it's in every industry that would apply. And so it therefore has the power to actually have an impact when it's recognizable no matter where you are, whether you're listening to music, looking at a video. Hopefully Apple, that pluribus I mentioned, they'll have a little Proudly Human logo soon, and you'll just know. And there's consistency. You don't have to take people at their word that it is human or it isn't, and the individual brand trust that you might look for. Now, there's precedent for this. There's all sorts of certifications that are in countries that are globally as well. Certified organic, as an example, is one where you would like to have tomatoes that were grown organically. So you can go to the grocery store and you can see that there's a certified organic stamp. And that gives you comfort because there's a whole set of rules behind it that the company had to follow in order to qualify for the stamp. Similarly with any of the other certification marks. Now, I'll just use that example of tomatoes. So if you go to the grocery store and you see 3 different types of tomatoes, one of them certified organic, what it's telling you is those tomatoes are certified organic. But it's not saying anything about the others. They actually might be, they just don't carry the logo. And so it's similarly with Proudly Human. We're simply saying that this particular content has been certified if it has by us, but we're not passing judgment or comment on anything else. It actually might be human, it might not be, but at least the consumers are informed about the ones that are. So we're going to do this across all industries. And I'm just going to put 3 up here just as an examples for books. We've got a set of rules that publishers and authors must comply with in order to carry our certification. We're actually working with several publishers right now, including in the top 5 global publishing companies globally, about how our certification mark would be able to be on their books moving forward. In fact, we have our certification system up and running for books, and we've had several authors go through that. In fact, one author has written 7 books over the last 10 years or so, but hasn't published them. And they've just got all 7 certified and validated by us. Now, I give you that example because one of the things we worry about is whether or not somebody's trying to certify too many books in too short a time. I mean, most authors, 1 a year is doing really good. 2 a year is even better. So we have systems in place that would kind of flag, and it did with this person. 7 books? Are you kidding me? But we went through a process and realized we could validate that. Videos, I kind of mentioned this already, and music. And so it's really the creative arts that we're starting with. Right now, we're in conversations with the music industry and a whole bunch of online content providers as well on certifying what they do. And there really is a market for this because consumers are wanting to know whether something is real or not. And you just think about yourself and your own colleagues and family and people that you talk about. But in particular, the content creators are almost outraged that they need something that proves that they are the ones that created this. And so you might be able to see some of this online on social media, in the news. There's lots of articles and news stories coming out about it where artists are saying, I actually put the hard work into producing this. This is my own mind, it's my own creative activity. And it kind of offends me when someone says, well, did AI do that? And so being able to carry that certification mark really helps them as well. Now, you all know this, and I mentioned it already, but really things are moving at an exponential rate now. And that means it accelerates and accelerates on top of the acceleration. And so we're seeing this with AI. If you just think, where were we 6 months ago? Where were we 1 year ago? It is unbelievable the quality that is coming out and how quick you can produce something. I remember sitting on the couch months ago with my wife Giselle, and somebody was talking about how easy it is to make AI music. And without exaggeration, in the course of 2 minutes, she went on to her computer, Google searched, found the company, created an account, typed in, take this song from 2010 and play it to 1930s jazz, and had the music playing already. Dan, you've got a question.
Yeah, Trevor, can you talk a little bit about the certification process? I've run certification programs in the past, and that verification step, my experience is companies try and game this all the time and like work end around. So what are you doing there? Because it's a super interesting idea, but that seems like it's going to be hard.
It is going to be hard. It's different in every industry how we would do it, but it involves everything from proving that somebody is actually a human. And then depending on, so for books, let me get, that's an easier one. We ask them to provide us with their manuscript, the book that they've actually written. And right now for books, we run that through a series of tools that we've acquired and put together into our own formula to try and deduce whether or not that is actually human written or AI generated. And right now, with all of what we've looked at in the real world in our testing, it's unambiguous. We're able to do that with certainty moving forward. So that's an example in books. Every industry will be different. It's probably going to be harder in some things like photographs and others, but even now there are detection tools for that are actually very good. That can be used. But it's a cat and mouse game as well. So we sort of see how this evolves. But the other thing, Dan, and it might be good to talk with you about this if you've done a lot of work in this in the past, is certifying organizations. So there's some online content providers that I don't want to name quite yet because we've not gotten to the point where they want to be announced or have signed. But they have a limited number of editors that essentially produce all their stories in the example of one, and it's their job to produce these. And so for us, we're putting together what the rules are going to be like for an organizational certification that involves what's your policy, what are your procedures. We'll do audits on them and spot checks, but we wouldn't necessarily run all of the content they produce through checkers, but we might do that for some of them. Did that answer your question, Dan?
Yeah. Let's chat a little bit.
I would love to.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Now, I just wanted to make this point. I wish I had some updated stats on Spotify, but the amount of AI music that is on the big platforms like Spotify or Deezer, the French equivalent, is just gone crazy. And what's being done about it? Are they tagging that content as AI or not? You might be listening to a playlist and it's putting AI music in the midst of it. Maybe you don't care. But one of the interesting things for us is that everyone we talk to says, well, probably people don't care, but I care, which kind of tells us that most people care. Maybe sometimes it doesn't matter if it's AI, but again, it's about having that informed choice. So the idea behind the company is we can be singularly focused and solve one problem and not try and solve all the others and provide that as a foundation. So interestingly, if I just go back to books, talking to publishers, many of them said at the beginning of the conversation, well, we think we're going to do our own certification that humans wrote our books. But once we got talking, quickly they realized actually there's a value in all of us publishers globally adhering to one standard, similar to Woolmark, similar to certified organic, and so on. And it's not a problem that they need to solve, that they can just get behind an industry standard and brand that builds trust with consumers to move forward. And we can move much faster than most organizations and governments around this. So I'm just going to maybe flip through a couple more slides quickly and then move on to Proudly Human Day and what we're going to be doing with manager tools. But really, it's about a benefit to the creators. They get elevated interest. Maybe there's more of an opportunity for people to consume their products because they know they're in fact human certified. You might go to Amazon or Goodreads and see that there's actual human written books. Maybe you are only interested in that and it will filter it out for you. So it's really about choice. Sometimes you might want to choose AI. I mean, we're not anti-AI. I'll make this point again a little bit later. We're pro-choice for consumers and humans about what they would want to do. I was at my dentist a few months ago, and she had an AI tool in the software that decided whether or not I was, the health of my teeth. And she told me it's good as a tool to help her as an experienced dentist, but it's probably not good enough yet to just rely on. But that was actually giving me some comfort that this human was being prodded by AI to look at some things that maybe needed to be looked at. Sometimes consumers will choose human, like wanting to listen to a music in a nice restaurant. Sometimes you'll make a spontaneous choice. So I think in the US, some jurisdictions, probably overstated, have self-driving Uber cars and from other companies as well. Maybe that's what you want. Jump in the car. You don't need to talk to anybody. You just want to get to your destination and work in the back seat. But maybe you've had a really bad day, came out of a really bad meeting, and you just want to talk to a human. So you might choose Uber Human instead of Uber X, which is automated, because you have that chance. You might pay $2 more for that opportunity to talk to a human. So we're pro-human. It's a trusted certification mark, agile commercial business. And it's really the functional opposite of reCAPTCHA. Now, if you don't know what that is, you actually do. It's that annoying, bloody thing that makes you line up the crosswalks or the traffic lights and all those sorts of things. There's nicer versions of this where you click a checkbox as well. What we're really doing is the functional opposite of that. We're comforting the consumer that the creator is human. Whereas what reCAPTCHA does is it comforts the creator of the website or the organization that you as the consumer is human. What it's not. Well, I said already, we're not anti-AI. In fact, I have to say, I could not do my job as a new CEO after the experiences I've had in large organizations if I did not have AI. I use AI every day to tell me, how do I, in the accounting software, tag this thing? And it gives me a quick answer, off to the races, do it. I mean, the things are endless. The examples endless of how AI is incredibly useful and can be used. So we're not anti-AI. It's not a copyright protection scheme. In fact, a lot of the publishers, the music industry and others have said, could you help us with copyright? And we've said, we're not getting involved in that. We're simply saying a human did it if we certified it. That's it. not an age or identification system either. In fact, the other thing that's really important that people don't always realize when we first talk to them about this is, again, all we are doing is saying a human did it. And someone told me recently, humans are perfect in their imperfection. So we're not saying whether it's true or not. We're not saying whether it's good or not. Just because a book has a Proudly Human certification mark on it does not mean you would love it. It just simply means a human wrote it. There was some news stories about our company in the national paper here, and there's all sorts of comments that come up underneath it. And somebody says, oh, great, you're fighting AI slop, but humans create slop too. And I didn't write anything back, but my answer would have been, of course we do. We're not saying whether it's slop or not. We're just simply saying this actually came from a human. So,
Trevor, can I
yes.
interject quick? Angela asked me a question about a book, or she made a comment really about a book that is certified certified Proudly Human. What was the rigor around grandfathered books? Remind me.
Oh, yes. So one of the things that we've done, and if you go to our website, proudlyhuman.org, you can search for any book. You could, and our database taps into about 104 million books that have ISBN numbers. And so what we decided to do was grandfather in all books published before 2022. So up until December 31st, 2021, because that's really pre-AI era. Now, there's a bit of AI and it was emerging before then, but there's only 16 agreed cases where a computer or AI generated text that was published as a book. So we've blacklisted those and removed those from our search and essentially said we've grandfathered in all books pre-2022 because we know they were human written. And so it's every book after that then that needs to be going through the certification system as well. Does that answer the question?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I thought it was 2021. I couldn't remember. Also, though, while I have you, Dr. Souza just chatted something that I think is probably something you guys are currently working on. Has your company looked at the academic journal market? The editorial boards are struggling with this topic. Journals with lower standards are being flooded with AI-generated papers.
The short answer is yes, but we've got nothing to talk about yet in that area. But it is an area of huge concern, and that's been pointed out there in the question. And we are talking with universities and some journals and also some granting agencies about how we can help them with this. I mean, the whole area of academia actually is being massively disrupted by AI right now. I don't want to get too distracted on that, but in fact, one of the reasons we're Alan and I in Canberra right now, the capital of Australia, is because there's a Universities Australia conference happening right now. So we've got 46 universities in Australia, and the presidents or vice chancellors and their deputies are here for the week. And we're talking with them about certifying universities because people just don't trust university degrees anymore. There's been lots starting to be talked about in the media where students are graduating now from a 3-year degree, and they've basically been able to use AI all through their university experience. And employers are questioning, do they actually know what the degree says they know? Is the degree worth the paper that it's printed on now? So it really is a big existential crisis. And having worked for 30 years in universities, I know that this is a real issue, a real problem. So that's just one example. Certifying universities, grants as well. I'll just maybe comment quickly on that. Part of how many countries run their grant funding arrangements is a researcher will submit an idea to do research, maybe get $1 million, maybe get $10 million. And the idea that somebody would use AI to help them with the grant is probably okay with the granting agents we're talking about, because it's about the researcher, their idea. If they used AI to explore and research that idea a bit more and make their writing a little bit better, that's probably okay. But where they really for sure have a problem is the assessment of that. And usually before grants are approved, they get peer reviewed. And so a whole bunch of experts in a particular field will say whether or not they think that research is worth doing or not. And so there's a real concern that those reviewers are not actually reading the grants, and they're just getting AI to make an assessment, and that's what they're uploading. So we're doing some testing right now with some granting agencies about whether or not we can help in that space as well. So it's a huge market. I guess this is one example of just another industry where there's so many opportunities as well. But if I just pivot off to another, fast forward 3 years, fast forward 5 years, restaurants maybe don't have human chefs anymore, many of them. Maybe they don't have human waitstaff. And maybe that's okay because you're just ripping out of the office quick to get a sandwich. And you kind of like the fact that you're not going to risk getting sick because some person preparing the food sneezed in it on you. And so you're happy with AI robots making your food. But maybe it's your anniversary, maybe it's your birthday. You'd like to go to a nice restaurant where there's a real chef, real humans. And so you'd have a Proudly Human certification there as well. So I've covered some of this, move forward a bit. Proudlyhuman.org is the website. You can sort of see a little bit about what we do there. And I'll just sort of end with a few thoughts here. So many of you probably know what a BHAG is, big, hairy, audacious goal. And we've got one as well, and it relates to this. So ours is, what if a new article could be added to the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights? And here's some examples of what the articles are. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. That's in there. Article 6, everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before law. Now, we would love to propose this. Everyone has the right to the information that will empower their choice to interact with other humans. Now, it's a BHAG that will never actually be possible because there's no way to do amendments on the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. But it's a nice idea for us to drive the company. Now, there's all sorts of other things I might just skip over here, but World Proudly Human Day. And so it's kind of cool to be able to do this call to announce to the close knit members of the Manager Tools community that Manager Tools moving forward is certified in all the content they produce, their ideas for podcasts, the actual podcasts, the show notes, the books that are written and so on are created by humans and the human insights that come with that. And it's not about AI's ideas. But the first World Proudly Human Day today sort of sets a marker that for the next year, as this certification mark gains prominence and more people are doing it, we'd like to see next year's World Proudly Human Day be a massive global event of many face-to-face events and festivals, rather than humans just celebrating online, maybe with a post that says, I'm declaring that I'm going to read a book written by humans, which maybe doesn't seem like a big deal now, but a year from now, it might actually be a big deal. Or I'm going to write my speech myself instead of using AI to write my speech, that sort of thing. Actually getting humans together at all sorts of different kinds of events. It could be a festival, it could be a concert, all of those sorts of things. So I'll just plant the seed now for next year for doing these big events all across the world, hopefully as well. So just in summary, our premise is humans have the right to choose human. The problem is AI is masquerading as human, and therefore we're not making informed choices about it. And the solution is to certify human origin, not just try and certify all AI generated content. So that's the idea. And Sarah, I might just throw to you, sort of taking a bit of food out of your fridge already
No, that's all right. Actually,
on us moving forward.
before we go on, I've got a question in the chat that I put a pin in and I didn't want to stop you. The question is, has there been any quantitative gains resulting from having the certification or any analysis around that?
Quantitative gains from a provider seeing more business? Is that the question?
John, is that the question?
Yes. So just the example that I was thinking, for example, if I was an artist or if I was an author and I had the certification, has there been any studies, any analysis that would point to a higher acceptance rate or a higher hit rate or higher some sort of KPI around that? Just curious of that.
So not with Proudly Human, John, because we're too new and the certification mark is just at the early stages of getting out there. So we've not actually, until that happens, but we're, I would say, 100% confident that's going to happen for all sorts of reasons, including there are lots of other organizations that are trying to come out. And I mentioned Pluribus earlier about saying made by humans. And there's a lot of online social media and others, people getting excited about that, knowing that things are human, and declaring that they want to support products and companies that are producing human things, and not for all sorts of reasons. And in fact, one other good example, I think it was in November in the US, there's a big radio podcasting media company, iHeartRadio. And they started running a campaign called, I think it was Guaranteed Human. And they've seen a really good response from their community and listeners about that company and all of the shows on it and all of the people that produce the content are human and are going to stay human, and they're going to be putting forward human ideas and not things that have come from AI. So we don't have anything specifically with Proudly Human, but hopefully in 6 months or 9 months we'll have that.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Trevor.
All right, I got one more question, and then I'll talk a little bit about what Manager Tools is doing. It's in my chat from Justin Ellis. The question is, as use of certification grows, what governance, audits, and enforcement systems will ensure the certification remains scalable and credible? That's question one.
Yes. Well, the short answer is that's essential and critical to the business. We have to do that. So, as mentioned earlier, every industry and categories to some degree inside the industry will have to have its own fit for purpose or unique process to do it. And so maybe I can actually come back in the Manager Tools case to give an example there, but I'll let Sarah explain it first, so I don't jump ahead.
Sure, absolutely. So as you folks know, we are now Proudly Human certified. Thank you, Trevor, Alan. And two of our books, The Effective Manager and The Effective Hiring Manager, were grandfathered in, and we recently got recertified, or got certified, I suppose, in version 2 of the Effective Manager book. And going back to what Trevor said earlier, we're not Luddites. I mean, Mark, Mike, and I had a call this weekend to talk about AI and its uses of AI internally at Manager Tools, and I'm sure the combined hours that Mark, Sarah, and Mike spent on AI this weekend is just disgusting. I don't even know how many hours. So this isn't about that. We're not disputing the fact that AI is smart. AI is smart. What AI isn't is wise. Wisdom is the combination of smarts and experience, and Manager Tools has experience. So essentially, our idea or our thought here, being Proudly Human certified, just distinguishes our content with our experience on top of it, the 20 plus years of experience of Manager Tools. So things that you're going to start seeing are things like our podcasts. You'll start hearing on our podcasts a little PSA about how we are Proudly Human certified. In addition, the footer on our web pages is going to say that we're Proudly Human certified. And we're going to, if there should be any future books, Mark, hint, hint, we'll get that certification mark on there before we publish our books. Because, yeah, I mean, we support the idea. We support human creation of ideas. And while we may use AI for things, it's not going to be our content. Mark, did you want to say something? You came off mute.
Books. No, not books. I don't want to talk about books. Dan West and I have been exchanging comments in the chat, and one thing I've thought of for a long time is validation for people in the public eye, that in fact what you're seeing is actually them. I can see where the group of people around famous people is going to include somebody who validates. And if there's not a validation, some sort of validation, as an extension of Proudly Human or someplace else, you won't be able to trust that what you're hearing from somebody is actually from them. And if you can't trust, the entire human economy, the world system is based on trust. Yeah. And the reason you know that is when trust fails, war starts. And Ben Dahlman, I like your background.
Is it my office?
No.
Okay. I can't see him.
Yeah, it's my office when it was mine. When it was mine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's funny. All right, so can you loop yourself back in there, Trevor?
Yes, I was just trying to look at Ben's background, like everyone else probably. There's a question, Sarah, in the chat about using AI editing tools for podcasts.
Yeah.
And, so that's good to touch on. So again, every industry will be different, but we're not saying AI can't be used at all, but it depends on whether it's affecting the human created content, whether it's trying to masquerade as human created content, or whether it's just simply helping with editing or enhancing it. And so in the case of books, we're following what the US Copyright Office has termed de minimis use, which is just a Latin term for minimal use. And so things like using AI as a research assistant is okay because authors have always used research assistants to go out and get them ideas and follow up on things and fact check. So that's okay to use AI for that. It's pretty hard to write something now unless you go on pen and paper or a typewriter without grammar and spell checking. So that is all right as well. In the case of podcasts, if there's some tools that help enhance the sound quality or remove pops or something from the microphone, those sorts of things is perfectly fine and acceptable. It really comes down to, again, is the person who is reading the podcast or speaking using their own ideas and thoughts or other humans' own ideas and thoughts, or are they just simply regurgitating something that AI generated, which would not be okay? Or is it human content that's being spoken, but an AI is actually doing the talking? And we would not certify that. Similarly with audiobooks, a lot of audiobooks are starting to come out with AI voices. And that's fine, but consumers should have an informed choice as to do they want to listen to a real human reading it or an AI, and maybe it's okay. So that's the same sort of thing with podcasts. I think I might have answered your question. Hopefully I did.
Yeah, I think you kind of did, Byron. To answer your question, we are not currently using any AI editing tools for our podcasts, not even Microsoft Word and the ability to spell check errors, as you've all seen in the many spelling errors that you've seen in our show notes. Now, we are changing that. In fact, I think, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, you're currently writing the first Manager Tools podcast in Microsoft Word so we can leverage the red and green squigglies. And that's the first.
Folks, I presently, Mike asked me to create it in something called Byword, which is a markdown language. It works great for incorporation into our content management system, but it's a horrible word processor for average use. And so the tech team has figured out how to get rid of words, hidden characters, and so on that would mess up the back end of our system, which serves up all of our content for you in ways that are consumable rather than in a markdown document. But
Mark,
I have
it sounds like something an AI could help you fix.
I will have to define fix. I typically have 3 or 4 spelling errors per podcast, and a Copilot says this is wordy, or you should not say you should write you are, and I generally say no to all of those things because unfortunately or unfortunately, depending upon how you look at it, you guys know my voice. So I'm sure there are ways we can speed it up, but I still have 1,500 more podcasts to write before I actually truly retire. And I don't think AI can do it. I'm sorry, I just don't. I don't think there's any AI system that could give you guidance that you wouldn't question about how executives should interact in a strategy meeting, which is a podcast I'm writing right now. I think AI's knowledge is great. I think it's fantastic, but I think that becomes very close to wisdom. As Sarah said, it's not wise. So I don't know. I'm happy to learn right along with you guys. But for right now, you guys know my voice. I think I dread the day somebody writes and says, "Did AI write this?" I will be intemperate in my response, but yeah.
Don't tempt fate, right?
Yes.
But I think I've just recently joined LinkedIn again after being off for like seven years, and I've done it because you sort of need to be on LinkedIn if you're running a company to have a profile, make connections, get the word out. But I mean, the amount of advice on how to be a professional, how to be a manager, how to deal with HR, how to do all these things, is overwhelming, and most of it is garbage, and a lot of it is AI generated. Which, at least the way it is now, AI goes out there and sees what other people are saying and then tries to package it together and put it out. And, they're putting together glossier images that goes with it. And AI is automatically doing that, or even creating fake videos of really good looking executives saying, "This is what I did to run my company." So I'm just reinforcing, I guess, Mark's point that especially around something like this, that's so important, dealing with other human beings in the workplace and being responsible for their experience at work, you need to have experienced guidance from a human who knows and has a track record with it, and not just some AI generated content. So I think it's probably very obvious to all of us in this situation.
Hey, Trevor, I have a really basic question. I'm new. This is a fantastic idea. I love it. I'm intrigued. I'm new to the certification. I looked up, the fair trade. I'm aware of it, but just in terms of the business model, is the fair trade is a nonprofit? Is this a nonprofit?
This is for profit, for purpose.
Okay.
Yes, and there's a lot of things I skipped over because I thought I would get long-winded and drag this out. But what we're really trying to do here is our part to save humanity, John. And it sort of sounds a bit funny, and we're trying to be funny when we came up with it. But we see this as an important part of actually doing that. So the mission is critical to get right. And in order to make sure we can do it, you've got to have a sustainable business model. Something that gets the balance right. And I might just add, I didn't really go into too much detail on Alan's background, but the companies that he's done in the past, and in fact, how he lives his life in every regard is about serving society. And Axon Instruments was his first company with, he patented some of the first things that did brain implants to help patients that are used widely now, Axon Instruments. And that was for profit, for purpose. And then Byron's here. I should have clued in. Of course, Byron would have been style education, for profit, for purpose. And just being in Australia and seeing the impact that style had across pretty much all of the secondary school science curriculum across the country, just a massive uplift. And now having been acquired by a US company to bring that with their other products across the United States, again, for profit, for purpose. So yeah, we want to make money, John.
Yeah, thank you.
I think I have one other question that I'm seeing in my chat, Trevor. I'm not sure that we covered. It was from Justin Ellis a while back. How does this model align with established third-party certification frameworks like that for coffee or chocolate or handmade rugs stuff?
Sorry, how does it
align with established third-party certification frameworks?
Well, I guess I might be misunderstanding, but the fundamentals. Oh, go for it.
Trevor, maybe I'll just expand on a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of what I meant by that was, for coffee or cocoa beans, make chocolate, you have people that physically go out there and check. So you're going to have, I would assume, a large amount of uptake in something like this, which is a good problem to have. But at the same point in time, you just need one or two things to go wrong, and then all of a sudden you lose credibility. So how are you going to audit this?
Yes. So part of the answer is you touched on, we're going to have people auditing out there, and it will depend on, again, the industry and on how we would work with it. And you're absolutely right. The credibility around the brand and the trust means we have to get it right. But it also means if we ever do get it wrong, and we're human, we probably will, we need to be open and transparent about that. So just for example, with books, if we ever discover that we've certified a book that in fact shouldn't have been, we will disclose that very prominently on our site and say we made an error. I think probably to some degree, the good thing about this is that the consequences are relatively minor. So the consequences are somebody bought a book thinking it was human written, it was certified, it turned out not to be true. It's not great, and certainly it's not good for our brand. We don't want that to happen. But there's other companies that are actually certifying that someone is a human in order to join online gambling or dating websites. And there's already been cases where AI has gone in there and people have lost money online gambling because they're playing against a computer, playing against AI. The consequences there are bad. I mean, people sometimes lose a lot of money and then it destroys their life. They might even, right? So we're playing in a different league there, but from a brand perspective, absolutely. So we're already gearing up to have those in-person spot checks and auditors. And in particular, I was going to come back to this from an earlier question. With manager tools, partly what's good is there's a lot that we know about manager tools already, having worked with them so many years. So we're sort of getting off to a bit of a running start around trust, but it's a matter of doing spot checks moving forward. We might visit 2 or 3 times a year just to make sure that what they have been doing in the past and said that they were doing is continuing to be done. Maybe when Mark's next book is finalized, I'm piling on the pressure here with Sarah. We'll run his book through our tools just to make sure it's human written still. But
I like it. I like it, folks. Just as a heads up about the video for this call, I am going to be sending out the email, normal video, but this video is going to be in YouTube. So just like as a heads up.
Cool.
Different process. I'm trying to get you to go to my YouTube account. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns even?
Enjoyed it. Thank you. Good
Absolutely.
stuff. Yeah.
Well, can I just say thank you, everyone, for joining, and I'd love to hear if you've got any ideas, criticisms, questions. Please let me know. I'm sure there's a million things we still haven't figured out or that we need to do. So tapping into your collective experience and perspectives would be wonderful. I just want to thank Sarah and Mark and everyone else from Manager Tools for this opportunity to certify you as well. It was a no-brainer in my mind, given comments that Mark said and what I know about Manager Tools. So I just think it's wonderful and a privilege to be able to do that. So thank you very much, and thank you for putting this call together to be able to announce it to the key members of the community before they just start seeing it show up, which I guess follows the good Manager Tools guidance that before you announce a change, you announce the change. Anyway, so I just want to say thank you, everybody.
Hey, Trevor, I got a question. I don't want to take anybody else's airtime because I can get you almost anytime I want, of course. Thanks for being my friend. I was surprised when you mentioned education, because about the only place that's harder to change than education is the government. And we get to elect those guys. The old saying is democracy is the one place where you get the government you deserve. I would consider that to be an incredibly heavy lift, higher education. Tertiary education, my experience is, if you take away experience with you and so on, my experience working in education, the entrenchedness, the resistance to change, so on. Now, I'm always working outside of the purely academic world. I've certainly consulted to a lot of deans and so on. But when you get into the academic world, I may not have the insight. Obviously, I don't have the insight that you and Alan have regarding their willingness, their recognition of the problem regarding AI and its use in instruction and research and so on. So can you talk to me? Can you just reassure me that there's a path there, that you're not jousting at windmills?
Very good question and point, and probably partly informed by our conversation over a couple of decades about me banging my head against the wall at universities. So
you're not alone.
The short answer is yes, we think there's an opportunity here. It might be small, but we're wanting to strike while there is some openness and interest in this. But I don't think it's anywhere got the certainty around all the other certifications that we're doing, which of course, when you start a company, it's tough to do. But one of the things we have up our sleeve with Proudly Human is not just a good idea that satisfies a need in the world, but Alan is kind of like our ace card, because he knows all of the past and previous politicians and businessmen that are big in Australia. In fact, around the world. I don't want to name drop anything with this going on YouTube, but there are very familiar names to all of you of very significant business people globally that have written books, and you would see them on a regular basis on the news, that he's just corresponding with over email or text. And so it's not just the good idea, it's the possibility of connecting with the right people to really propel this forward. And I'm saying that, Mark, to answer your question, because him having been a previous board chair of the largest university in Australia, in the top 50 globally, the chancellor, he knows the university vice chancellors, he knows the system and the sector, he knows how hard it is, but he also knows how important universities are to the world, to society, and he also knows how that trust is rapidly breaking down. So we have had discussions with several of the presidents, vice chancellors, who are very open to this idea. And really, the starting premise here is well, universities like to trade on their own individual brand. But the world is a global workplace now. So why would any employer in some city in the US know about one of the 46 universities in Australia, and that it follows proper assessment practices? They wouldn't. And there's actually precedent for this already, Mark. Business schools around the world get accredited or certified by independent bodies that say they reach a certain level. And the best business schools have the Triple Crown. They've got 3 different kinds of accreditation and certification. So it's not entirely a foreign idea for universities, but they do. The issue is they want to trade on their own brand. I mean, one vice chancellor told us, until your brand is better than my brand, I don't need you. So that'll be an uphill battle. But there's also regulators in most countries that set standards for which universities need to adhere to. But they tend to be not well known. They're not public facing. They just make sure the universities are adhering to standards behind the scenes. And then if they're not, a university will lose its accreditation, which means their degrees are not worth anything anymore. So we're going to have to work in that environment. You're right. It's very complex. I have to admit that months ago, when Alan had this idea, I was not keen on it. I used to joke around that the last thing I ever wanted to do was be one of those poor people that tries to sell into a university, because I was in the university, and who's the decision maker? How do you get approval for the budget? Then you've got to execute. My God, I couldn't think of anything worse. But I'm convinced it is worth trying, and that there's an opportunity to try and get in. So sorry for the long answer, Mark, but it's a very good question. It's one we think about every day. But we're sort of striking while we think the iron's hot here, to be able, they're all in one place. They're getting beat up in the media that all their students 100% of their students is the claim, are cheating in universities. It'd be the same all around the world. Students are online bragging that they can complete every assessment in their degree, including exams, by using AI. So we've got standards set that would be in-person requirements for assessment. And actually, you can, if you're interested, anyone's interested, you can go to assuredassessment.org. It's all one word, assuredassessment.org, and we're actually linked to it from our corporate company name, which is 23first.org. So we're incorporated in the US, Australia, and other as 23first. And then we've got Proudly Human certification. We've got Assured Assessment certification. We've got World Proudly Human Day. One of those things I thought maybe I could tell you all, but then didn't want to turn this into a 3-hour event. So.
Yeah, that was helpful. Thank you. I think we could use it. I think going back to the biggest class I had at West Point was 15 people. Right. There was no place to hide. And I couldn't believe it. I've seen the same things you've seen regarding kids bragging. And I think it makes for new challenges in our big market in terms of corporate clients, in terms of how they're assessing people. And I think we're going to end up with virtually all large corporations in the next 50 years are going to have their own university. When you start, you can't work. You got 2 weeks or more of, this is our culture. This is how we do business. Here are some tests. Let's make sure you can actually do it. I think more testing is coming in the process of leaving tertiary education, higher education, and going to a career. So, yeah.
I think you're right. Well, look, actually, if anyone is very interested in me sending them a couple of articles that were in the Australian news on this, or actually anything else, you could just email me, trevor@proudlyhuman.org. It's just my first name, trevor@proudlyhuman.org. You can also email trevor@23first.org. Both will get to me. But I could send you a couple of articles about this that have gotten national attention as well. In fact, I have some of them linked off of that Assured Assessment site, but you need to pay to read the article. So if you email me, I'll help you out.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.